Hello, and welcome to Rule of Thirds, a conversation about art, design, and culture, with your hosts,
Berns,
Mike,
and Jude.
If this is your first time listening, welcome to the family. Be sure to follow us on our Instagram at Rule of Thirds Pod. Don't be shy to say hi. All right, now to the episode. In today's episode, we discuss creative events that we've attended online, whether or not art can be design, and digital minimalism.
How are we doing, guys? How's everyone's week?
Hey, it's been an interesting week, tough week, but good week at the same time. But we here, man. We here by the grace of God. So yeah, man.
That's good to hear, man. That's good.
We say, man.
I'm all right, you know. I feel like it's been a weird. Yeah, I know we kind of discussed it earlier, but don't know if it's the weather or just lockdown 4 or just life. But yeah, kind of.
That's a lockdown 4.
Who's counting?
I kind of just I've been. Wait, is it lockdown 3 or 4?
3 or 4.
Oh, sorry. I was talking about lockdown 4 with a friend. Sorry, lockdown 3. God forbid it doesn't.
Oh wait, so okay, because I was thinking, what 4?
Yeah.
I mean,
let me not speak it into existence, as people say. But
this is the last
amen.
Amen.
Oh,
yeah, I feel like I'm just over it, but obviously it's a pandemic, and you know we need to stay indoors and stuff, and but just I need sun. And
we all need sun. Trust me. Like
Gather
I've realized my skin is getting like
bro.
it's getting light. I'm like, hold on a minute. I'm definitely not this light. What is going on here? You know. No, but I hear that, man. That's good that you had a good week. I mean, the week is not over yet, but thank God. That reminds me, actually. Like I was gonna say, we keep having these seminars / Zoom calls of like designers that pop up and everyone drops it somewhere. Like how I don't understand. How do you guys find it? Because I can never find any of them. I'm always just like I always see it secondhand. Like I never like I don't know how anyone gets the link, but suddenly everyone has the link.
How did I come across?
Usually for me is the dots. So I'm subscribed to like bare different sort of like creative newsletters or whatever, and they literally send events here and there.
Okay.
To be honest, there's events happening all the time. I remember there was one that was
Virgil Abloh.
See, that was good. That one was really good.
Yeah. I'm enjoying them though. I'm enjoying them because it's free content at your door.
Yep.
Crazy. It was so open to so many different things now. The other day we were in the Joshua Kissi one as well, which was really good. Hosted by It's Nice That and Apple.
Oh, Apple, our best friend.
Yeah, usually from like newsletters and stuff.
Yeah. They've got quite a few as well.
Apple,
They've got Studio Dunbar. They do like motion graphics. That was on, I think, the day after the Joshua Kissi one, and then they've got another one with
like a series thing.
Yeah. They've got like a lot of people for like the next couple of weeks. So for anyone who's interested, just check out Today at Apple online, and then they should have like a list of events and stuff.
Okay, cool. That's amazing. But yeah, I mean, wait, how was the Joshua Kissi one? What was he talking about, if anything? Because I think I missed that one.
Oh, you weren't on? I really thought you were on.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't on. I wasn't. I kind of regretted not coming on just because I got it so late, and I think I probably need to keep more tabs. But then there's 1,001 things going on at the same time. Sometimes
it's true.
You know,
it's only so much we can take at a time.
For real.
But it was good. It was really good. I think it was nice to kind of see his intention behind his photography, the importance of like documentation and like history, and especially like documenting Black, like African American history. In like today's world has been really interesting, and even him talking about like colors and what they like symbolize, and like English. Well, I was gonna say photographing Black people well and stuff, and how to edit Black skin, because you know, as we all know, like historically, photography didn't really have, you know, Black people in mind, and stuff. So the importance of just like photographing Black people well, capturing the history and stories and stuff. And then he gave a little tutorial at the end on like how he would edit a picture on his iPhone. So that was interesting too.
Oh wow, that sounds quite interesting actually.
I think what I loved about it as well, there was a segment where he basically was just talking about his photos and stuff, and was saying like what he was saying, what he loves about his photography is that you can't tell where it's been taken. So like one picture was taken in Accra, but the other one was taken in New York, for example, and it was they use the same exact editing, color, whatever grading, whatever you call it. And I was like, raw, like the fact that you can actually manipulate pictures to look like you're in another country, is really crazy.
Scary.
And what was his reasoning behind it again? He did it for a particular reason.
Trying to remember, there was something about not assuming, like either assuming the location or assuming the people, like something to do with assumption.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Just because I'm thinking now, I remember watching Breaking Bad, and there's this like typical thing that they do every time it's Mexico, it goes yellow.
Yes.
So
it's like Mexico in the Middle East. Every day it's that sepia.
Yeah,
yellow.
it's always like smog in the air type vibe. So that makes sense. That makes sense. Because I think there is like that association with, okay, this looks like that and that looks like this. I was going to ask as well, I think photography wise anyway, I think I realized this when I was at uni, was that there is a lot of American culture or American lifestyle that is documented, and it's very very rare that you see that, especially in the UK. Like you don't really get to see people in the 60s, I don't know, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s even,
I think
as much as you would
the only
see
time I've seen that is like with I think there's an Instagram page called,
is it Black in the Day?
Black, yeah.
Black in the Day.
That's an amazing page. Yeah.
I just love looking at imagery like that, man. It just shows you like how times have changed, and like I don't know, man. I think it's a beauty of just seeing life from a complete different time and perspective.
I was saying like it's just interesting that we kind of like I think similar to what Michael was saying earlier about that whole idea of documentation and like keeping, similar to Joshua's work of like making sure that it's like recorded almost, you know?
Oh, by the way, for those who don't know, we're talking about a photographer called Joshua Kissi. Photographer, he now directs and stuff as well. He's got some really great work. Feel free to check it out at Joshua Kissi, I think on all of his platforms. So yeah, disclaimer.
But yeah, no, I think that's quite interesting, the whole documenting, because I think as time goes on, especially in the black spaces, we always want to be larger than life naturally, because in most cases we feel like we've been, or not even feel like, justifiably so, feel like we've been pulled back or held back from situations and advantages. So it's like we always want to be larger than life, and we are larger than life in our natural states anyway, so it makes sense. But I think it's a conversation that we've had like separately off here multiple times about just like the regular human being or the regular black person, like where is the shop, you know, the person who sweeps the shop, the barber, like where are those people, you know?
It's so true. It's like
icon to the community.
It's like what you said, exactly. It's like what you said about we don't have to always focus so much on like the regal images or like this reimagining, you know, dynasty and like royalty and stuff. Like there's so much beauty in the everyday that we probably don't pay attention to. Like if we look at Humans of New York, like just the power of like people's stories and photography. And how it's just like documenting their lives and the everydays, but you speak to certain people and you realize they've just got a deep story to share, or sometimes it's just ordinary, or someone's maybe dealing with grief, or someone's had a really happy moment that they want to share. And I think that's maybe at times we may not focus. I don't know, we have a very interesting relationship with that type of photography, and like you said, especially in the UK, because I think there's something beautiful about documenting these moments. Because I had a conversation earlier with the guys, and I was like, oh, like it's really interesting how today it doesn't seem like we capture much of what's happening in the moment. And to be fair, we've got like smartphones and stuff, so maybe that has a part to play. But when you look at photos of like the 60s or the 50s, it's like there's something really interesting going on. There's obviously that nostalgic feel too, but maybe in like, who knows, 50 years, we'll have that same feeling with photos from like the 20s and the 10s, like 2010s, 2020s and stuff. So, yeah.
I was going to ask a very
that's
controversial question.
One.
Sorry, go on, Berns, go on.
Oh, wait.
Before I throw this one.
Yeah, let me leave this conversation. Yeah. That's interesting. I think so. Obviously, I think I mentioned it earlier, but this whole thing, I'm reading this new book, or listening to audiobook about digital minimalism.
Yeah.
And it kind of speaks about just using technology to it as a tool rather than letting it use you. And it just made me think about like social media today and stuff, and something like what we are all in now, where it's like, how can I put it? We are very we like to absorb information very quickly, but we don't digest it.
Yeah.
We don't actually meditate on what's happening. And I feel like when we were younger, for example, I was playing that on my Game Boy, for example, but then when that game is done, I'll just be looking around or just playing with my toys. And I actually had time to meditate. And I wonder if we've lost, or if we can regain that essence of just taking in life.
That's kind of that thinking about it even makes me sad. I can't lie, because it's just like childishness. Oh, and man, that's sad.
I was thinking about even further, and I was like, I look at like music today, not to even to like write anybody off or shag anybody, but like I look at music today and it seems like, this is not for all artists, of course, but I think the most popular music is very like basic, and it speaks about money, women, lifestyle, and it doesn't go any deeper. And I think the artists that we really love speak about the in-depth parts of life, if that makes sense. So when you speak about someone like Kendrick, that you spoke about last week, for example, a lot of people really tailor to him or like him because he speaks about the deep stuff and he really paints a picture of what's happening. Whereas the top music these days is like, let's just have fun, let's just do whatever, but it's not really going to in-depth parts of life. And I think it's interesting, like, how do we regain that sort of like meditation, that sort of like reflection upon life? I feel that's where the best art and the best reflections are created.
That's an interesting perspective, because I'm thinking about it. When I was younger, anyway, like most of the music that I was listening to wasn't too in depth. But I think it was always a balance, because I think even I know this might seem far-fetched, but I always feel like there's always this correlation between like hip hop and R&B, where it's like R&B is for when you're alone and want to like really take your time with things, and then hip hop is mostly, well, not all of it, but mostly about on the move and like getting through the day and just kind of like powering through things. Because I mean, especially because of how it was birthed as well. I mean, my exposure to those kind of music, especially like right now, let's say hip hop is pop music, so my exposure to it has always been like this kind of like, this is a music that is rebellious and free, and you can do whatever you want, you can get away from the worries of life. And R&B or soul music or blues, whatever it was, jazz, it's always been about focusing more so on getting through the day, or like, you know, like keep pushing, we can get there type vibe. But for me, the hip hop that I knew, obviously not all of it, because there is the quote unquote conscious rap and stuff, like even the Kendrick Lamar and stuff, where it's like, we're gonna be all right and stuff, of course. But for the most part, it was always like, look, turn up, YOLO, tomorrow we die. Because today, you know what I'm saying? Today we party, tomorrow we die type vibe. And I personally don't have a problem with it. Because even till now, there's some music I listen to, I'm just like, damn, that was a good time. Like simple things like Lollipop, Lil Wayne. When I hear that song now, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know it was about nothing.
I hear what you're saying. I don't disagree. I feel like there has to be a mix of everything, but I feel like the concentration of that has, so like the ratio at the moment on the pie chart is like 70% just loud music, let's live life.
I mean, life has to be lived, you know?
I hear it. But then there's 30% of it, like, where they're giving us the gems and they're giving us perspective.
No, I hear you.
Some people may not want to listen to that.
No one wants to hear that.
I feel like
that's the thing.
No one wants to hear that.
The amount of consumption, because there are some people, it's like there's a time and a place for like, I don't really want to listen to like slow music. I'm reflecting on the world and life and how I'm feeling. I just want to have a good time. I just want to turn up. I just want to vibe.
And then you see now going back to what I was talking about, the digital minimalism thing about Instagram and all this Twitter stuff and everything else like that. is because we've now been we like, so social media managers or leaders haven't programmed the devices, but they programmed us to take in stuff quickly and to, they almost described it like you know, like what do you call it, a slot machine.
Yeah.
So you know when you go on Instagram, for example, when you go on Twitter, you always pull down, you know, like a slot machine. It refreshes. Ooh, what's coming up next? Do you get me? The program,
that's so triggering,
always
fam.
on the what's next, what's new, what's next.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Do you get me? So I hear it. We don't want to listen to it anymore. We don't like listen to the deep stuff anymore because we just love taking in quick stuff. You want the thing that will just give us a high. Do you get me? So it's
Berns, would you say though?
Bad, though.
I think.
Sorry, go on, Michael.
Yeah.
No, just to say, like, too much, like, let's say fast food in a sense is bad for you. So it's like, it is a moderation thing.
Exactly that.
I was gonna say, like, don't you think that
What
maybe
are
it
you
just
gonna say?
might be the age that we're in? So like, because we're in our mid-20s, this is the part of life where everything is on the move. You know, because I remember like when I was what's the name? It was when I was, I think, sixth form, and I used to like sneak into the University of Hertfordshire to go and use the studios, and there was a security guard. He was Ghanaian. Yeah. He was there's a Ghanaian security guard, and he used to uncle used to let me in.
Yeah, of course.
And basically the deal that I had with him, and bear in mind at this time I wasn't really like a massive jazz fan. I think this was when I want to say like right before sixth form, so yeah, like year 10, and he was like, the deal that he wants to have is basically I burn, because he didn't know how to do it. He said burn CDs for me of jazz music because he knew I could illegally. I shouldn't be baiting myself like this, but allegedly I could illegally download.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Allegedly, I could illegally download music and burn it on CDs. So he allegedly said, you know, let's make a deal. I can let you into this official university, allegedly, and you know, you can use the studios, but just burn some CDs for me. So every time I came, I bring in something new that was like, you know, a bit of this and a bit of that. It was just like every single week I was bringing in like new CDs. And the funny thing that he even bought the CDs, but like my whole point was that he was in his like 50s, you know, and that was the music that he was taking in. And he always like, oh, why are you doing this hip hop stuff, this noise, you know? So I think it might be to do with our time as well, because obviously we see it like that, but think about it, what music did we grow up on? There's music that we grew up on we think is gold, and the music now we think is trash, but then for the kids growing up, that's gold for them, you know?
Yeah. The thing is, for me, there's actually music today that will be nostalgic. Like, there's music that I love so much that I'll show my kids in the future. Do you get me? This this is so funny, yeah, because now this reminds me of Gets His Bar.
Which one?
Gets Said. I think it was in the first song in the new album Conflict of
The
Interest.
Nostalgia Bar.
Album designed by Jude.
Yeah.
It says forget about nostalgia. Like, my best years are ahead of you.
Yep.
Do you get me? And it's like, I love that because it's like, for me, that was a commitment that is gonna make good music, good art. Doesn't matter. You don't need to rely on the past.
Yeah.
I want to make and I think that's what I want to see more. I want us to be more intentional with making art. And of course,
intentional with making
everyone's
art.
got their motives and intentions. They've got their emotional intentions. Like, some people are generally just trying to make a quick meal and then dust out. You know, just trying to make some money for their family or whatever. Yeah. But some people are in it for the long run, and I want to see more of those artists because, in fact, music is like medicine for me.
No, I hear that.
So
of course,
I want people to
makes
really
sense.
take it seriously.
I was gonna say, like, in comparison, like, obviously, like, Gets is a perfect example of someone who actually takes his time and, I guess, crafts the music. But then, if we're gonna compare like that form of art, which is obviously making music, into, let's say, design, where there are a lot of designers who might just design literally for the money. Like, very rarely would you meet a designer who would call themselves an artist. You know what I'm saying? Like, most of them will literally just be like, I'm a designer, I just design. Give me a job, I'll do it, get my money, I move on, next project. So it's just quite interesting, like, that you say that, but then it's like, I guess it doesn't carry over in every single form of like expression, because with design, it's, again, I think we spoke about this in the last episode of how functional it is, and I think it's very difficult to kind of look away from the purpose of it. So it's like, this has to do this. Same way, like in music, I guess it would be the same way. It's like, this music has to sell this so that I can get a number one and I can do this and I can do that. It's more about selling the lifestyle and the idea rather than the actual music. Like, if you really think about it, first of all, most of these people don't really make music money off music anyway. Most of them are making more money off like advertisements and promo and like, you know what I'm saying? Obviously right now it's peak because there's no touring. So that's going to be another interesting thing to see how all these artists are going to translate from this social media. Because a lot of people have blown up in the last like year who have never touched the stage before. Do you get what I'm saying? To then translate into that whole space as well. But it, like, just to say, like, it's very interesting to see how that, I guess, would you apply that rule to like photography? Would you apply that rule to design? Or would you say there are some designers who are like, there should be designers who just design and get money, and there should be designers who design with the intention to make art, I guess.
That's to be thought leaders. I think a question to you guys, like, do you still feel like there's thought leaders and there's people like, people always reference these famous designers and stuff for their style. I think the biggest one was what's his name again? Starts with a B. Is it Bahamas?
Oh, Bauhaus. What? Bauhaus Boys.
Oh my god, so the Bahamas Boys, the Bahama Boys.
I'm done. The Bauhaus movement,
Bauhaus. Oh yeah, I'm tired. But like, do you feel like there are gonna be people like we can reflect on in the future and be like, yo, these were the people, like 20 years from now, we can look back at 2020 or 2021 and see like, these were the thought leaders at the time. These men defined the new design thinking and theory. Is that possible? Do you see that happening?
Of course.
And if so, why? Yeah, go through.
I mean, I'd say this, like, the people who have inspired me, and I think Michael, especially, we've had these conversations because I remember us going to the PAC event where Joe Kenneth came down.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and we all had this little fanboy moment of street etiquette.
Yeah, street etiquette.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, for me, those are like the thoughts leaders who kind of like allowed me to do what I do now and feel confident and be able to be like, oh, I reference my stuff from them. Like the stylistic nature of their work, their videos, their approach to it, that whole camaraderie, for lack of a better term, the brotherhood, you know what I'm saying? That was, created and like allowed to breathe, because like for me it was very difficult to see a bunch of black men who look completely different. None of them look the same.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? To come together and have this kind of like, we can make things together. We all have the passion to create. And there was one video I watched, I remember from them, there was I think it was Mellow X, Jesse Boykins III, and a few other guys in there, Joe Kenneth as well, who came to do some poetry, and they were all in there, and they, I think it was, what was the name of this song? Oh, I can't remember the name of the song, but it's I think it's Nora Jones and Andre 3000. They made a song on the Love Below album, and they recreated the song, but they added so many different elements because there was one person who came there and tap danced, and there was one person who came and did the poetry, and there was another person who came and sang, and it was just this beautiful, like, melting pot of being able to do something that was so left, because it's like in most cases you'd be like, okay, you're not a musician, don't come. You do this, you're so away from what we do. But it's just the idea of collaboration, which is, I think we've spoken about this so many times in the first episode already. Like, collaboration is always key. So I feel like the thought leaders in the next 10 years, 20 years are the people who are going to be collaborating now. Like, again, a clear example is street etiquette. Another very, very obvious example, which I'm like, to this day, like, hurts me so much that they like had to dissipate. But the Madberry Club. If you man know about the Madberry Club, if you don't know, please go.
I'm not aware of that one.
Honestly, search them up. I think their page is still up.
What's that?
And they're literally like just they were, I guess they were kind of a creative agency. The guy, I think his name is Philip, the one who runs it. He does a lot of the creative direction for Flatbush Zombies. So like their videos, their tours, their artwork, everything. So like, honestly,
goodness.
if you see how they approach things, and that idea of like, we can literally just do anything. Awesome. I remember they did a project where they turned a little van car type thing into a little like studio on the move. So it was literally a moving car with a studio in the back, and like these things for me were so amazing because it was like you could tell that they were still repping the neighborhoods, and they brought all the influences into their work. You know what I'm saying? And
2018 was their last
yeah,
post. December 2018.
just a few years
So
ago,
what
they
happened to
just disbanded. And obviously, all of them are still doing their own creative endeavors, but I think
Yeah.
it was one of those projects which literally was just a project. But like honestly, like these
wild.
people are gonna have a mark on individuals regardless. You know, I've seen so many brands copy Madberry Club, and me personally, I have no problem with people copying things. You know what I'm saying? It's the beauty of.
What do you mean by copy? What do you mean by copy?
So I
Do you
think-
mean like taking elements?
Well, I know this sounds very corny, but I think it was a Picasso phrase of like, you know, great artist,
Yeah.
you know, blah blah, and the stealing, blah blah. So I think for me, I when I was at uni, I realized very quickly that you're gonna have to let go of the ego of feeling original, because
Yeah.
there's nothing.
Under the sun.
As he says, nothing under the
Honestly,
sun. There's nothing.
I want at some point you're gonna be like, you know what, you're gonna see people like, and I think for me it was always I guess validation to see that what you're doing is right or in the right path or it was original when people start to replicate what you do. Obviously it gets a bit techie when it's in spaces like fashion where someone steals your clothes and they make millions of it and you have to create a lawsuit. That's different. But like your way of thinking, like people, you can copy someone's way of thinking, and
I mean, boiling it down, design is communication, right? So
Yep.
it's like just taking someone's
exactly
language.
that.
And language can't be copied. Language is a way of
So
communicating.
it's just
yeah.
if you can replicate someone's communication patterns, you're basically copying what they're doing, and you inadvertently get the same results. And I think a lot of designers don't do that. To be fair, now I think about it, a lot of designers are very forced to think they can be original. And the thing is,
Why is that? Where did that come from?
I don't know. I don't know. I generally don't know. It might be maybe just to do with like human ego, which is fine. Like a lot of people will naturally want to feel like I'm one of one. But then I guess that comes down, and I think one thing I've realized is that like I always have I have trouble collaborating with such people because it's very difficult for them to look past. Like me, I always have this thing. Like when I was younger, definitely I was like, look, I want to do it from start to finish, just me alone. It's me. And then as time went on, I realized like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when it goes out and your name is attached to it and it's amazing work, it doesn't matter. You know, if it doesn't matter if it's you know, the smallest or the biggest thing, your name is attached to it. Do you get what I'm saying? Like even the idea of us three just being here and recording a podcast about design, you know, and culture and arts, it's like any of us could have done this alone. But what's the point?
Oh, yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? It's about like us learning from each other and creating a space where we can have conversation and then allow people, again, to Berns' question initially, like we become the thought leaders because we are allowing ourselves to be in positions of vulnerability to then learn. And it's very hard for designers to see that kind of thing. We don't see a lot of it where people are literally like doing a trial and error right in front of us. So I think that's what I admire, like the Madberry Club or Street Etiquette. You saw them do things right in front of us. And the excellence was in them trying every single time, and
It's true.
being able
It's
to
very,
like
very true.
do this and do that. If it doesn't work, that's cool. We'll try again, and we'll do this and we'll do that. Like I know there were so many things that Street Etiquette tried to do but didn't work out. But it was like for me, it was never like, oh, they flopped or look at them, they're failure. No, it was always like they found a way to carry on. You know, okay, this didn't work, but what did? Let me take that and push it to this idea. Oh, this didn't work, and then just keep carrying on. I think so. In terms of the thought leaders, I feel like that's how it's going to be. It's going to be a thing where it always comes down to those who are willing to risk themselves being exposed to some degree. You know, you kind of have to show your behind a bit.
Yeah,
'Cause you're
yeah,
gonna have to let
definitely.
people see you flopping and trying things in front of them. Thank you for supporting us by listening. Be sure to share your thoughts with us using the hashtag #RuleOfThirdsPod. Enjoy the rest of the conversation.
But I feel like it's kind of a bit, especially in like today's culture, it's a bit difficult to do because we're so used to the highlight reel of social media and to have like a perfect front all the time. And I think because before, I guess also like technology and like accessibility to each other online has kind of like built this thing where now we can see a lot more, but before certain things weren't visible. You didn't see certain bits of the process. Let's
Yeah.
say if an artist or designer was to be like, "Oh, we've just released this, or we're showcasing this launch or whatever," that's all you see. You see the final product. But I think because now we have there's so much space to possibly see the behind the scenes or
Yeah.
to talk with certain people that we can if we want to, but at the same time, because it's very when the age of like aesthetics and things looking
Yeah.
a certain way and everyone presenting them their best self. So I think that's created a kind of like fear of, okay, everyone's perfect, but really and truly, we're all figuring it all out together. I do agree with what you said 100% about the whole idea of we probably have to be willing to show our asses, to be very honest. Like we have to be
Yeah.
willing to be real and frank, okay, showing people the process because we I feel like, especially for like the future as well, we need to, we really do kind of need to moving
Yeah.
forward. But in order to, let's say, for you to be that thought leader or whatever, there needs to be that added process because you want to take people on the journey. I think because it's funny because like when you initially asked that question, Berns, at first I was like, oh, I don't know, because I think I was summing up. Okay, Bauhaus movement. That was a huge movement in design. When's the next Bauhaus movement gonna happen? But now I think because the barriers to entry are just have reduced a lot,
Yeah.
and a lot of people know how to design, and it's a lot more accessible. It's easier to do. We have access to the tools too, so it's like actually there's quite a lot of people that are doing little things or big things within their, let's say, their groups or communities. So actually there's a lot of things that are kind of happening, and sometimes it really is a thing of, do you even know what's happening? Because
Yeah.
it's like a visibility thing. Are you part of this community? Are you part of that community? So I
Yeah.
do feel like there are a lot of, like you've mentioned, like street etiquette. Like I know that for me, that really influenced me in my
Boy.
like creative journey and like career. Seeing that was possible. Seeing black men shoot themselves in a certain way, just have fun, collaborate, try out new things, experiment. And because you're with them on that journey from the early days and just seeing them grow, you're like,
Yep.
whoa, okay, like
Who would have thought?
this is
You know?
possible. Even them like looking into when they used to work with VSEO, or the first time it happened when I think they launched like some filters
Some filters.
and
Yes.
stuff. I was
Oh
like,
my god.
yo, like this is for me, like I can use this.
Massive.
That's wild. And that was like, because they had to practice and figure it out too. So it's nice to see how all of that trial and error from all of these pictures that they were taking gave you like a tangible project that like product even that you can actually use yourself.
Yeah.
And then like you mentioned, all the people that you've like spoken about, or even this is like, ooh, I was gonna say like streetwear, for example, in like fashion, and how that kind of influence. I know it's a different industry, but I was like, okay, a group of people came, and now like streetwear is the mainstream. Like, I'll be honest, I kind of feel like I might not know a lot about fashion, but I remember like there were brands like Hood by Air.
Yep.
At the time, I think like Marcelo Ballon, even though like, I know is he Italian or French? I can't remember. But he had like the whole like print, like the snakeskin print around the neck,
Yeah. On the neck. Yeah.
and on like your
Remember
phones and
those.
stuff. And that was like a big thing like people just didn't see at the time.
Yeah.
Riccardo Tisci with Givenchy, he had like the Rottweiler dog print and that kind of thing, taking it to
That was
streetwear.
everywhere. Yeah.
And then I felt like Kanye West did like a really big thing with like streetwear, and like I feel like he influenced a lot of
Words on that,
people.
man.
I feel like we don't give Kanye maybe credit for some of the influences with streetwear, because I remember like being on Instagram as well. The jeans he had, the oversized fit, the
Yeah.
distressing of clothes, like I feel like he really did was one of the key players in like pioneering that kind of style of fashion.
He showed his behind.
And like
He showed his behind.
I'll say even before that. I remember when I was watching a documentary. I forgot who it was about, but I think it was about hip hop. Run DMC with the Adidas.
that's
Yeah.
right, that's true.
For example,
And the
like,
trackies as well.
I guess that's a cross between like well, you could say black culture. I was gonna say music, but actually it's bigger than that. I think black culture and fashion. I think 'Cause I think when you look at it, like for example, when you watch these old films and stuff, like the classic black films and stuff, you see the fashion they're wearing, and everyone wants to be a nineties person. Everyone wants to dress like a 90. Do you get me? Like, I think that's a huge factor to this new wave that we've been seeing for such a long time.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I feel like there's just a lot of people who are like making new ground. Even like if you see it on like on Instagram, especially for like designers like you guys, I'm sure there's people that you follow, and there's a certain design style that people may have. There's like a community and cluster of people making the same type of work. Like for me on my explore page, I follow quite a few like motion graphic designers, and they're always playing around with like kinematic type or like motion like typography and stuff. And just seeing like all of these different people is like, okay, I saw this person and I saw this person started, but then there's a cluster of like all of these guys who are working on similar kind of projects and they're inspired by one another. Perfect example, there's a guy who did the Bowgasm poster in a day challenge.
Okay.
Can't remember his actual name, but if you type in Bowgasm, it's Baugasm. And this guy did like a poster in a day, check on Pinterest as well. And there was this whole like fantasy collage, like photo compositions, playing around with like cinema 4D, and that has influenced the work of a lot of designers. And
I remember,
he did that.
I remember this.
Yeah.
Yes.
For some people, quick reference, I don't know if people remember. Let me not say that because copyright. But like somebody's fashion brand used the print for the T-shirt.
I mean, I was gonna say name and shame, but that's totally understandable.
Yeah, let's not. But yeah,
you can figure it out.
Like, yeah,
do your research.
But yeah, like Bowgasm guy really kind of pushed in something new in design, especially when the whole like art and design thing. Because people saw, let's say, people, I guess there was like people playing around with design as an art form and vice versa. But I think that really helped encourage like, okay, no, we can take this as design as well as art. And like, you know, there's posters that he sells and work, but then also designers, let's say within industry, seasoned ones, appreciate the work at the same time. There's like a balance from the new generation and maybe the older generation as well.
Yeah.
When does design become art?
Oh, God. Oof. I mean, I've always thought design was art.
Serious question.
So I'm just thinking like,
I feel like there is differences.
There can't be though.
There's definitely differences.
But what I was gonna say, what's the what would you define? Because like for some people, like, I know for me, like it's the craft, like that. I'm just like, ooh, that speaks to me as in a way that design is art. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it's like the craft of it, the intention.
I hear what you're saying.
But then other people might take it as aesthetics.
Yeah,
that's not what it is.
I hear that with design though. I feel like there's constraints that you may have because design consists of a lot of constraints. For example, say you're working for a company and they've got a certain brand guideline. You're working within those constraints. You're not really like expressing sort of like your soul, if that makes sense. Whereas in art you can, and I think that's where design can come in. So you can actually design something that can express something that's not within the constraints of a guideline or system.
I would agree with you, but I'm just thinking
that's the way I see it. Sort of like go over to the line of art. If that makes sense. Design can become art, but design in its form, I think, is very constraint in terms of like you have to work within a particular guideline.
I see what you're saying.
Like the rules and stuff.
If McDonald's came to you, like, yo, make an advert for us. You can't go and make some different.
So the thing is this, you
have to make it
Berns, because I would say like if you even the example that Michael gave about the Borgasm guy, like if someone came to him and said, I want you to design something, they're coming to him because he has a particular style of design. So surely they'd be asking him to design something that it becomes art. Like, you know what I'm saying? That is art. I think art is just like a form of expression. It doesn't have to be in constraints or not. It's still like art, because like, for example, most musical compositions have to follow a particular like form or structure. It has to be audible. It can't just be noise. But even if it isn't, it's still like music. might not be good music to you, but it's still music. So what I'm saying, like, design is still art. It might not be good design, but it's still design, and therefore still art. If that makes any sense. So like for me, I just feel like if it can make you emote, then it's art. You know, if it can make you feel something, even if you look at it like, wow, this is clean. Oh, wow, I understand what's going on with this brand, or this brand makes me feel comfortable, or, oh, this, like, the colors of McDonald's or this and that. Like, come on, you have to have some, like, it has to be art to your design. If not, like, like, it would make no sense.
Funny you say McDonald's as well, because I was even going to ask you, like, their new ad, I don't know if you guys have seen it, designed by like Leo Burnett.
Yes, the one with the light.
Yeah, like the arch of the M, but it's a ray of light coming into a house. Like that,
it's beautiful.
That's like posters they have like out of house like advertising and stuff, but like kind of feel like you could high key have that in your house.
See,
as a piece of work,
as a poster.
Yeah. So it's like again design and art.
But the thing is, think about it this way though. That I thought for me that probably had to go through a lot of processes where it was like, yo, when they first got it, I'm sure that went through a lot of revisions where it was like. Can we break the boundaries here? Because that's not a typical McDonald's advert, but it still works really well.
Yeah.
So for me, that's where I see it as art. Do you get me? Whereas the typical McDonald's advert where they have a certain font, they will have the T's and C's at the bottom. This one didn't have that. It felt very free. It felt out of the boundaries.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Out of the constraints that McDonald's will give. If that makes sense. I think that's the way.
So you're basically saying that art has no restrictions and design does.
Yeah. I mean, in its core form, in its purest form, design has restrictions. In its purest form.
Okay.
Because you can't now go and make a newspaper and use Comic
It
Sans.
can. It won't be. It might not be great, but it's still.
Some people are mad. They will.
It might not be great, but it wouldn't make sense. Or using one decorative font. Do you get me? There's always constraints. Whereas with a newspaper for like an art piece, I can use Comic Sans.
Do you know what this conversation reminds me of here? It reminds me of the grime is not hip hop conversation, where it's like grime has to be 140. If it's not 140, it's not grime. And but it's like I understand it for sure. Like I understand why it would want to be like, because I know some designers who don't want to be called artists. Like, nah, I'm a designer. I've worked hard for this. I want to be called a designer. And there's some people who don't want to be called designers. They want to be called artists because they feel like their thing is more than just design. For one reason or the other, no one knows why, but that's up to them. But like me personally,
some people want to be both.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, some people are like, oh, I'm a designer, I'm an artist. Like, bro, they're the same, surely. Like, you can't, you know what I'm saying? For me, it's like chicken and egg situation. It's like, whatever you call it, it's still going to be under the art. And I can't help but make the, you know, connection in my head. Like, if I see design, I'm like, wow, like this makes me feel like this. Or wow, this is so clean. Or wow, this is so this. Or wow, this is so on the edge. It's like, it always makes me feel something. Therefore, I can't help but call it art. Same thing with writing. Same thing with music, interior design, painting, whatever it is. Like, it always makes, if it can make you feel something, like a movie, cartoon, whatever, that's art. Like, if it can make you feel something, you know, a play, tap dancing, for Christ's sake, like whatever it is, if it can make you feel something, surely that should be art. But again, I totally understand why we'd want to break things off and call this and call that, because then I guess if everybody was called an artist, that would be very confusing. It's like,
Quick question then.
Go on.
I was gonna say, okay, so album artwork or single artwork for musicians or artists, art or design? Or both?
Oh my god!
Both.
Sorry, I just remembered that cover of the guy who's a goat, and the goat is giving birth to him. when you said, is it art or design? I was like, surely it must be art, because there's no way that's design, right? sorry, go on, Berns. What were you saying?
No, that's such a bad cover. Like Offset's cover.
It can definitely be both. It can definitely be. Obviously, we spoke about, and I guess this is where the conversation comes in again. Obviously, we spoke about the Conflict of Interest album by Gets, which is now out. Was designed by Jude.
Yours truly.
Like for you, that the cover of like a young. I don't want to say his full name, because even his
His mum doesn't even call him Justin.
Young boy Justin.
Excuse me.
He's young boy Justin gets in the middle and then gets up. Like for me,
We
that
only know you
is
as
art.
Get. Sorry, sir.
But then, yeah, please forgive me, sir. But like for me, that is art. But then the conflict of interest, the title, the fonts used, for me that's design.
Like the overall campaign as well.
That's been your constraint. So for the billboards, for the promo, for everything, you've had to use these as constraints. You can't go out of that. You must now use art you've made.
Yeah.
The fonts you've made. You can't now make a... Do you get me? So I thought that's where you get the combination between art and then design.
Torrey Moy's outer piece, like artwork, like when I see that, I just think, wow, a designer just went crazy. Obviously, really he's a designer himself, so it makes sense. Wait, I'll try sending in the chat. But yeah, he's a designer, so it makes sense that, you know, he would make something as beautifully symmetrical and peaceful in terms of design like this. But the thing is, like, I'd still call this art. Do you know what I'm saying? I wouldn't just call it design. It looks so like art. Sound design wise.
It's exactly
like,
again. I'd have this on my wall.
Exactly. If you can put it on your wall, would you call that then art and not design anymore?
No,
because surely they're the same. I'm saying the same thing.
I remember there was this one event I went to. Glug. I think I've told you guys about Glug before.
Yeah.
And
we went to Glug.
Yeah. Like me and you, not me and you, me and Berns went, with a couple other guys as well. But this one, there was a tour. No, I tell a lie. It wasn't Glug. It was Nicer Tuesday.
Okay.
So it's nice that they have they used to have like meet-up events that they'll highlight for designers, artists, illustrators, whatever, and then they kind of like share a project that they worked on. And there was this one guy, I can't remember his name, but he's an art director, and he art directed an album cover for Robin, the Swedish artist. And so the reason why I'm like sharing this one is because he went through the process of how he made the cover.
Yeah.
And so for like the Robin type, I think the album, I don't know if the album is self-titled or it's called Honey. I can't remember, but what's it called? Yeah, it's called Honey, right? So this album cover, if you guys want to check it out, Robin, Honey, and the type, for example, on the Honey is refracted. So it almost looks like you've looked at it through like the text through a certain mirror, and all the text is kind of refracted. And for that type, that was actually custom made. So he worked with, I think, a type designer, and they constructed this whole alphabet of, you know, A to Z of, you know, to spell out Honey and Robin. And then it went on the other promotional materials. Yeah. Went on all the other promotional materials as well. And yeah, the art direction as well. So the photography, that was even informed. They were like, okay, we're going for poppy colors. This is the style. So when it all came together, it created this really great cover, but then there was a lot of design and, let's say, these guidelines that went behind it to make this final piece. So I would say, I guess, it can be like a different combination. Sometimes it's like design work that then creates a piece of art, or maybe equal parts design and art. Or sometimes it can just be design, because then there's Tame Impala's cover. They've got
classic.
two that come to mind.
It's the one with the melting little pinball thing.
Yeah, the Currents album, as well as Slow Rush. So they're a lot more like illustrative. But
so Slow Rush with Currents,
some people will be like, okay, is this design, especially the Currents one, is that design or is that art? So I feel like sometimes it's like, sometimes 50-50, sometimes it's 40-60, sometimes it's all of this to create a final art piece, but sometimes it looks like design. So yeah.
Oh boy. No, I agree. I just feel like, for me anyway, it's just they're all the same. But I was gonna ask, going back a tiny bit further, like to what we were talking about before, do you feel like there is like almost hierarchy in like the design / art world, where it's like, in terms of like collectives and stuff, like we're not exposed to a lot of design because we're not in the know, or we don't know the right people,
Definitely.
and so on, so on, so on.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
100%, especially in art. Actually, no, in both fields, I'd say.
In both.
Because
There's gatekeepers, man.
Like this gatekeepers. And do you feel
course,
like
I guess-
that's productive in the design? Like, at what point does it become like destructive almost? Because I think we spoke about earlier about how we almost have a responsibility as designers to push like the envelope a tiny bit further for the next people to come and have those opportunities. I think it's a bit even heavier for us when we think about our spaces, us being black people, and sometimes having these limited spaces and like being kind of cautious about how we approach it. We don't have the privilege of like, oh, I was born into millions, therefore I can just jump into the art, or I can build an art collection and build a gallery in like a few months. It doesn't work that way for most of us. So like, do you feel like that's like a productive way of like working? And if not, like how do we kind of like combat that? Because I know like it's always something that bothers me. It's like, okay, cool. Why didn't I know about blah blah when I was blah blah years old? Why didn't we never speak about this in school? Why is it that I know only white designers and not like any other designers? Like, what's going on? That kind of thing, you know?
I was gonna say, remember the conversation we had after the Joshua Kissi event, where I had made a statement and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like Joshua Kissi, like, what did I say? I think I felt like he pioneered like something
the Black
pioneered,
Literature.
like black creatives."
Yeah.
And then you were like, "Yeah," and you were like, "Michael, that's a stretch." And I was like, "Oh, but you know, I feel like there was the accessibility, and there was like with Tumblr as well. I know for me,
Yeah.
like I didn't see black photography like in that way before. So for me, that was
Yeah.
like the gateway. And having conversations with other creatives, a lot of us got to know about the creative arts or more about photography through like street etiquette and the work of Travis Gums and Joshua Kissi, as well as like the rest of like the collective of like Black Ivy, the Slumflower and stuff. So for me, that was like my gateway. But then you then said like, no, like, but there's plenty of like black photographers, which is true.
1001,
But it's just,
yeah.
I did not know at the time. You were like, there's this person, there's this person, there's this person,
Yeah,
there's this person,
yeah.
there's this person. And at the time I was like, right, I actually don't know a lot. And I think there is, I guess to answer your question, I think we definitely do. It's important for us to share this knowledge to better inform other people. I think sometimes people may feel like, okay, well, if other people have access to this, then will they be better than me? And oh, like it's gonna cause me to have to maybe like be a bit better, like push myself because they have the resources that I have access to. Which I guess might be a bit of an insecurity that some people may have to like
Crab in the
get
bucket
over.
type
But I
thing.
do think it is important for that information to be shared so they don't make comments like mine, for
Oh,
example,
my
or they're just well informed in general. Because especially like if we want to help push the boat out, especially in this day of like information, like there's a lot of stuff out there. Sometimes you just need to direct people down the right lines and stuff. I feel like
How do you not focus that though? With like so much mass information, how do you guys sort of like channel down and focus? Okay, this is what I want to really discover and study. Because I really struggle with that. I feel like there's so much out there that is like, where do I start? Do you get me?
Yeah.
'Cause I really want to expand like my knowledge of art, design, and culture. So it's like, how do I do that in a way that's productive?
I mean, I'd say it's kind of like it's down to like your interest and your niche, because I think a lot of people are very like, for example, if you look at a piece of design right now, any type of design, be like, I don't know, a laptop or a phone or a bottle, there's something about it that intrigues you. It might be very minute, but there's something that intrigues you. You need to just find what intrigues you about whatever you're looking at. So if it's photography or film, like what tickles you? What makes you feel, wow, that was amazing? Or, oof, didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
And then try to explore that feeling. Because it's very hard to, like, I think, especially when it comes to like visual arts, you can get that feeling from multiple things that don't look the same, you know? Like I have the same feeling when I look at like example, like some work from Zanella Moholi, for example. And when I look at her work and I look at even like, I think we were speaking about this earlier, like Carrie Mae Weems, I have a very similar feeling of like, wow, I'm seeing something so raw that I wouldn't see on a normal day-to-day basis. And from two black women as well. So I think there's always going to be similarities and things that you gravitate towards, and it's just about finding what you like and then researching who is like this. Or I think Google does this thing where if you find one person, they'll say people search for also blah blah, and it comes up with 10 different people who. For the sake of argument, they're just black people. Useful. For example, you search one black person, 1,000 black people come up. But it will give you people who are in that same vein, in that same time. I think what's the name? The photographer, what's his name? Gordon Parks. That is heavily referenced, especially like in hip hop in general. Like if for me, when I saw the video, the damn like music videos coming out. I think Element in particular had like heavy Gordon Parks references, and it was like the moment you see that, it gives you that same feeling when you see the picture, and it's about looking at the video and saying, wow, I really like how there is like a kid, a child in the field holding a rope that's tied to a beetle, a ladybug crawling on his forehead. Like how does someone think about that? And then saying, let me find out who they inspire. Like, there's always people in the comments saying, oh, I see the reference of this, or oh, I see that. There's Reddit threads. You have to be interested to start your journey and finding out about these kind of things. You know what I'm saying? It's just proactiveness. So the moment you find that, it starts almost like a tumbleweed effect of like, okay, I found this and I find this and I find that and I find that. I feel like that's how it works for me.
Almost going down like that rabbit hole. Like YouTube.
Yeah, exactly that.
I was gonna say, there's a really good example. This book, it's still like an artist by Austin Kleon, and he kind of has like a web. So obviously, from the book, the main quote is the one that you mentioned, Jude, about
stealing.
Like bad
great,
artist,
good artist
copy,
and great artist steal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he was like, okay, if you think about who inspired Picasso, there are probably multiple different people that inspired Picasso. And then each of those people, there are multiple people that inspired those people. And there's this web that is then created of just a lot of work to kind of like look through, study, reference, and then you're able in a way to look at the other sources and kind of put a spin on it to make your own thing. But what was I going to say? I think to answer your question, Berns, I definitely say try and do it a bit at a time, because I know with me, I'm interested in a lot of different things. 1 minute is, oh my God, yeah, film. Oh my God, photography. Oh my God, design. And it's like, I'm trying to do everything at once.
Everything.
And I just get scattered. Like my brain is just overloaded. Like sometimes in the middle of the night, I was like, God, like it's actually too much. Like help me, because I want to make sure that I pay attention to all of it, but doing it a better time. So if that means like making a schedule and just being like, cool, some days we're going to look at this stuff, or this week or this month we're going to focus on this, and the next one we can focus on that, and making sure maybe like you note it all down so you know what it is that you want to study, like eventually for like more practical tips. I think that's like a better way to also do it. But and sometimes just like log off the internet or like social media, just leave
digital.
That's the one.
Much
Perfect
overload. Like we already have information already to process, and now you want to give yourself even more without even processing what you've just taken in. So take time at the same time.
Thanks guys for tuning in to today's episode of Rule of Thirds. Feel free to share your thoughts with us using the hashtag RuleOfThirdspod. And for more from us, follow us on Instagram at RuleOfThirdspod, or our personal accounts for myself, Berns JNR,
Mike at _ man like Mike,
and Jude at Kente Kwame.
Catch you guys in the next one.